Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dental Buyer Advocates Friday webinar. We're talking about the 5 things every dentist needs to buy a dental practice. Okay, so this is going to be pretty basic stuff, but actionable things that you can use to prepare for a practice purchase, if that is on your radar. And I assume that because you are here, it is. All right, so I am Craig. And I've worked with dental buyer advocates now for several years. I have a background in business banking, been a small business owner myself. And so that is my background. And of course, the team, we have a team that is thankfully even much more capable and has much more depth in their backgrounds than I do. So you'll have a whole team behind you when you work with dental buyer advocates. But for today, we don't need to worry about that so much as we do about how do you get to the point where you need a team behind you? How do you get to the point where you're looking for a CPA, you're looking for an attorney, you're looking for a banker? Okay. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. These are the 5 things that every dentist needs, and we're going to be going into some depth on each of these. And as I go through it, you're welcome to ask questions. If you come into this webinar a little bit later, you catch the replay on YouTube or Facebook, you're welcome to put some comments, questions in the comments there, and I will try to address those the next time. All right. So for now, let's get started. Okay. When we talk about the things that you'll need to buy a dental practice, oftentimes what we're actually saying is, here are the things that you'll need in order to get a loan to buy a dental practice. So I'm going to be talking a lot about what you need to do to prepare yourself. Uh, and we're going to be talking in generalities about how to prepare yourself for applying for a practice loan. All right. And the first one here is cash. Now, when we talk about cash, you are going to need to have cash on hand when you purchase a dental practice, and you'll need the lesser of 10% of the purchase price or $50,000. Now, here's where we get to introduce our first wrinkle of nuance. I feel like I need to trademark that one. But when it comes to the idea of having cash on hand, we are not talking about a down payment. Okay, so a couple of nuances here. We're not talking about a down payment. This is cash that you'll have on hand that you need to show to the bank that you have, but it's not money that you're going to spend in order to buy the practice. So you're having cash on hand is a signal to the bank that you're a good borrower, that you are that you're frugal with your money. You know how to save. You know how to work toward a goal, that sort of thing. And it also shows that you have a rainy day fund. What happens if you step into that practice and things don't go quite as well as you were hoping that they might, right? Do you have that rainy day fund to get you through that first little bit of time as you get your feet under you as a new practice owner? Okay, so that's what the cash is there for. Now, this is the other bit of nuance here is that this amount, when we're talking about the lesser of 10% or 50K, we are talking in general terms. Every bank has slightly different requirements, and it will depend in most cases on the practice itself as well as you, the borrower. But when you are presenting to the bank, or when you're presenting yourself to the bank for the loan, they'll go over those specifics with you. But before you get to that point, this is a good goal to have, that 50K. So your goal is $50,000 in liquid cash. So what that means when we say liquid cash, I'm not talking about stacks of bills, just accessible funds, right? Checking, savings account, anything that, money market accounts, things that you can pull that money from with no penalty. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so the equity in your home or your investments, they don't count. All right, so you'll need that 50,000 as a goal. And if you end up needing to accrue just a little bit more, or you need a little bit less than that for a practice purchase, either way, you've got that goal going in. Number 2 is production history. And again, believe it or not, this is about the bank. Again, okay, so obviously when we're talking about cash and credit score stuff, which we'll get to in just a moment, that obviously is about the loan, but this is about the loan as well. But it's about the loan in the way that you are let's see how to put this. You're proving to the bank with cash that you know how to save your money and be responsible with your money. With production history, you're showing the bank and yourself and the seller that you are going to be able to carry on what has been happening in that practice moving forward. The good news here is that you don't need to have 100% of overlap with what the seller does. But what we're talking about here is 80% of the seller's hand speed, procedures, and sales skills. We'll talk about all of those in just a moment. But essentially, what you're going to do when you are evaluating whether or not to purchase a dental practice, you're going to pull production reports at that practice and you're going to compare them against your own. Okay. And if you're a bread and butter dentist, maybe you do a few implants here and there. Oh gosh, it's been a year since I've done one. And you're looking at a practice where 40% of their revenue comes from implants. Uh, Implants. I can say that word. Well, then you'd be in trouble, right? So you want some overlap. You want a lot of overlap with that practice because when you step in there, you're going to have loans to pay off. Presumably, you'll still have student loans. You'll certainly have a practice loan to pay off. You'll have your lifestyle that you want to live, etc. And so, if you are unable to do what this practice has been doing in the past, then you're going to be kind of up a creek. You'll find yourself not able to pay back that loan, right? Well, that's where the banks as a gatekeeper come in, right? They're good at spotting whether you have that overlap. And of course, you are perfectly equipped to do that as well. So, when it comes to that 80% overlap, I mentioned hand speed. Okay, this is one of the reasons why we'll get to the experience that you need to have. You can't really buy straight out of school, generally speaking, because you need that hand speed, and it takes time to acquire comfort with a handpiece outside of school. And so, yeah, 80% of the hand speed of the seller. Can you do those procedures quickly enough? And then the procedures themselves, 80% of what the seller does. So I already mentioned that with the type of dentistry that gets done in that practice. Are you doing that type of dentistry? Number three is sales skills, which is an interesting one because what I mean by that is let's say that you've been an associate for the last 5 years at a practice where they do essentially all PPO, right? Everything gets billed to insurance, and you don't really have to talk much with patients about the cost of the procedures that you're recommending. You'll throw a little bit out there, but really it's going to be up to their insurance provider to talk about what they cover and what they don't, and what the out-of-pocket cost would be. But let's say you go from that environment. Now you want to buy a practice that is 100% fee for service, right? Maybe they do some out of network billing. Maybe it's actual cash payments oftentimes. If that's the case, you are going to have a lot of conversations with patients about the cost of the procedures that you're doing and the ones that you're recommending. And are you able to speak human with those people? Are you able to, do you have the sales skills to transmit that information and help them understand the value of getting those procedures done? Okay, so sales skills is on there as well. That doesn't mean that you cannot go from a full PPO office to a fee for service office, but it is a consideration there. That's something that you'll be asked about by the banks and that you should be asked about by yourself, frankly, is whether you want to um, step into a different situation than what you've been doing before. All right. So your goal here when it comes to production history, especially if you're right out of school, okay, or, hey, I guess if you have your eye on ownership, you could be anywhere in your career, but you're going to want to work as hard as you can and keep track of it. So pull your production reports, keep a hard copy, keep a PDF, whatever you want to do, but keep those production reports, pull them, say on a monthly basis, and have those ready to go. And then the work as hard as you can portion of this is because when we talk about an 80% overlap with the seller's procedures, let's say we can also throw collections in there. Um, That 80% number means that if your production history shows that you have done, say, 500,000 in production in the last year. Okay, that would be we'll just use a nice round number. Okay, I've done $500,000 in production, and I want to buy this practice. And the practice itself does 1.5 million, and 300,000 of that, I'm just using numbers, right? The 300,000 of that comes from hygiene. The rest is from the doctor. Well, that doctor then is doing 1.2 million in production annually, and you come in and say, "I want to buy this practice, and I can only prove that I can do a half million in production." You're going to be in trouble, right? So, find a place if you're right out of school, or if you are, um, maybe you're in an employment situation that you don't love right now, whatever the case may be. Find an employment situation, and whether it's corporate employment or an associateship, whatever it is, make sure that it's a place that is going to allow you and require you to work hard, to do a lot of production. Because once you do that, then when you are heading toward practice ownership, you are going to be you're going to have a lot of doors open for you, a lot of options, right? You can always do less production, but you can't always prove that you do more. All right, let's move on. Number three is a credit score over 680. The nice thing about this one is that, like it says here, it is a pass fail. All right. So this is one where you don't have to, there's not a ton of nuance. Every once in a while, a bank might make a slight exception, but never count on it. Basically, if you've got a credit score of 680 or above, then you're golden. If it's below 680, you're not going to get the loan. Okay. The one thing that I will mention on the nuance point here, or I guess anti nuance, is that there is no sliding scale after you get above this credit score. So you've got that credit score of 685. Great. You're going to get the same loan at the same rates with the same terms as somebody who has an 800 credit score. So really, this is just a pass fail. So your goal here, obvious, is pay your bills and build that credit. I'm not going to get into how you should build your credit. You can Google it for all I care, or talk with another professional, a financial professional that you know, about how to build that credit, how best to do it. I'm kidding. Don't Google it. Find a professional if you have concerns about this. Um, but that's your goal. Pay your bills, build your credit, and you should be good to go there. Next up is a clean credit history. Now, you might think, hey, if I've got a credit score over 680, I've got a clean credit history. Yeah, probably, but maybe not. There are times when we see people with an okay credit score, but 6, 7, 8 years ago, they had a bankruptcy or a short sale on a home, something like that, and that can hamper your ability to get a practice loan. Okay, so when it says stories matter here, what that means is that unlike the credit score situation, this one, there are instances where the story is going to matter, right? Hey, I had a bankruptcy. It was 10 years ago. Here's what happened during that bankruptcy or leading up to it, and here's what has happened since. And that story does matter. So if you have a major blemish on your credit, all hope is not lost, but it is going to make things more difficult, and you'll have to have that story ready. So your goal here: no bankruptcies, no short sales. And I could kind of go back on this one: pay your bills on time, right? So you don't want obviously you don't want these major blemishes on your credit, but you want to keep the minor ones off as well. Okay, so make sure everything gets paid on time. And lastly, here we are at the end of our 5 things you need in order to buy a dental practice. Number 5 is 1 year of experience. So when it says sorry gunners, what that means is that, like I was alluding to before, it is extremely unlikely that you'll be able to buy a practice right out of school. You'll need that 1 year of experience. The reason for this are a lot of the things that we've talked about already, right? Developing that hand speed and those clinical skills. But the other part of it is understanding your own preferences, whether it's clinical preferences, location preferences, management style and philosophy. When you are right out of school, I'm just going to make this a blanket statement and assume it's true about you, just like it's true about almost everybody, myself included. But when you come out of school, you think you know what you want, you think you know the path you're going to go down, and that will probably change. At least the details of, again, the kind of dentistry you want to do, the place you want to practice dentistry, that stuff can change. And so that 1 year of experience is really valuable for a lot of reasons. You want to get your career off on the right foot, or I should say, your ownership portion of your career off on the right foot. And that year of experience helps you do that. Your goal here is to identify what it is you want from your future practice. And yeah, I talked about some of the big three already. Location would be if it's not at the top of the list, it's got to be close to the top of the list. What is it that you want out of a practice? Well, where do you want to practice is a huge question. So make sure you answer that because once you buy a practice, you'll want to count on being there for the next at least 10 years, right? So don't put down roots where you don't want to. But then also management philosophy, clinical philosophy, making sure you have that dialed in. So as you go through, in fact, let me cycle back through here. Um, we talked about production history. Your goal is to work hard as you can and keep track. It's not just about the production reports, right? It's about identifying what it is that you want. So you work as hard as you can and then be thoughtful about it. Go home at the end of the day or the end of the week and write down, what is it that I enjoyed about practicing dentistry this week? What was it that drove me absolutely crazy? I'm an associate. I work for an owner doctor. What is it that they do that I really admire? What would I change if I was in their seat? Write these things down. Think about them. Be thoughtful, and you'll go a long way toward being ready to run your own practice. All right. So those are the 5 things that you need: cash, production history, credit score, clean credit, and the fifth is that 1 year of experience. But extra credit here, you learn anything, not everything, okay, but learn anything about running a business. There are a few categories that this falls under, right? There's finances and there's technology. There's all sorts of different things that an owner has to worry about, right? But a lot of these can be farmed out, right? They can be delegated to your CPA, your attorney. You can hire management consultants. You can hire somebody to help negotiate your insurance billing, right? Your rates there. So there's a lot that can be delegated elsewhere, but there are things here that can't as easily be delegated, and a lot of that has to do with the people part of running a business. What does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to what does it look like to offer discipline for somebody, or to provide positive feedback and build a relationship with your staff? What does that look like? That's a little harder to farm out, like I said. And so, and we'll come back to that slide. So, if you want to learn anything about running a business, I would lean on that people side. Although you can definitely dip into the numbers and other things as well. So, you're probably familiar with volume one of How to Buy a Dental Practice. If you're familiar with dental buyer advocates, we have this book out there. But a lot of people don't know there is a volume two that walks you through what it looks like to transition from an employee to an owner of a dental practice, the things you need to watch out for, and yeah, how to effectively make that leap. If you want to dive deep into what it actually looks like to manage employees and how to hold one-on-ones and give feedback and all of those things, then Mark Horstman's The Effective Manager is a fantastic resource for you. If you want to learn a little bit about the numbers side of running a small business, then Simple Numbers Straight Talk would be a really great starting point for you from Greg Crabtree. That's one that I read earlier this year and quite enjoyed it. So those would be good places to go. Otherwise, let's see. The last thing I'll mention here is as you are preparing to purchase a practice, you're going to need to find a practice to purchase. And there is no such thing as starting that process too early. Well, okay, if you're a D2, yeah, give it some time, right? But if you're, let's say you're a D4, or you're a new graduate and you know you're not quite financially ready to buy a practice yet, but you're working toward it and you're saving, yes, you can start finding a practice to buy. There will be great ways to do that in the PDF that you can find here at this QR code. So use that QR code. It'll take you to a page, asks you for a little bit of info, and then we send you the free PDF. It's got a ton of information. What is the 80/20 rule that is referenced here? How do you build your network? How do you work with brokers, right? That's a big topic. How do you work with brokers if you're looking for a practice to buy? All of this is in the PDF here. So go ahead and download that and let me know if you have any questions. I haven't even mentioned yet, but at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see my email address, and that URL there, the /contact us. That URL has a link to my calendar. So I would love to hear from you if you download this PDF. If you have questions about, hey, what does an effective mailer look like, or how do I approach a seller at or a potential seller at a CE event or something like that, I'm happy to talk through things with you. So shoot me an email, throw some time on my calendar. I would love to chat. All right. That being said, I think that should do it for today's webinar. Thank you, everybody, for participating and for coming in, especially those of you after the fact who came in for the recording. I'd love to hear from you as well. So Craig at dentalbuyeradvocates.com. You're always welcome to reach out that way. Look forward to hearing from you and look forward to working with you. Thanks very much, guys. Have a good week.